The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. I'm Nancy Jackson.
And I'm Shannon Penrod. And we are already being joined via Skype by our wonderful friend and expert, Vince Redmond. Vince, for those of you who don't know, he's a regular here on the show. He is a licensed marriage and family therapist who was a behavioral therapist for many years before he became an LMFT. So he has a wealth of knowledge about what an ABA intervention is like, what the goals are, and what it can do emotionally for a family, what the pitfalls are, and thus all the things that can be done to help make that so that it's not an extra issue. So Vince, welcome back to the show.
Hi, Vince.
Good morning. How are you, ladies?
We're good.
We're good and better because you're here.
Yeah.
So that's a fabulous thing. So Vince, we were talking with you this morning about what we were going to talk about, and you brought up that it is that time of year when it's time to make the transition back to school.
Which is hard to believe.
Right? Both of us were like, what?
It seems like summer just started, right?
Right. It was just 4th of July. What do you mean the transition back to school? Both of us had like a reaction. But it really is time, as you were saying. And so talk to us a little bit about why now is the time and what kinds of things that we should be thinking about.
Well, for a couple of reasons, right? A lot of schools actually now start early August, and we want to give our kids and families enough time to prepare for school as it comes up, right? We don't want it to just be sprung on them at the last minute, and it just start, hey, you're going to go to school next week. That's oftentimes creates anxiety, creates panic in the kids because their routines are changing, and they're going to go back to school with new people and new teachers and sometimes even a new environment. And we want to prepare the kids for that transition, right? Every kid's different, every kid's transitional needs might be different, but we want to make sure that there's plenty of discussion, maybe even observation, maybe a trip to the school that might be needed to help our kids' anxiety as we prepare them for the next coming year. As we were discussing earlier, right, a lot of school districts now are actually starting in early August, which is absolutely crazy for us, but it's right around the corner. They're 3 weeks away now.
Yeah.
Right. So how long in advance do you recommend sort of priming our kids before they go back?
Again, I think individualized, it changes per child, but I would recommend, a minimum of 2 weeks to let them know and start preparing them and talking about it each day, getting them prepared, buying the new clothes and the school supplies. And like I said, maybe a trip to school to just kind of get them comfortable with the campus again and what's going to happen, right? Giving them plenty of notice and discussion. I can't emphasize that enough. We want to discuss with them, have conversations with them, let them know that it's happening, and when it's happening, maybe even having a visual model, having a calendar with the school date circled so that they can visually see that when school is going to start again. Most children don't know. I mean, this goes from your kindergartners up to your high schoolers, don't actually know the date they're going to start. They kind of rely on the adults to prompt them for that. So giving them that knowledge, giving them that forewarning, giving them that time to prepare, and then giving them opportunities to ask questions about it, or even just to process it internally is extremely important.
Okay.
And I always think back to because my graduate program, Patrick Stewart, you know who that is? He's the British actor
yeah.
that played Jean-Luc Picard on
Right.
Star Trek, and he's on the X-Men, whatever. He came to do a workshop with the acting students there, and he was teaching us, and somebody was he said to somebody, "What's your preparation for doing what you're doing?" And they started talking about it, and he said, "I'm going to stop you." And he said, because there's two types of preparation, and there's preparation where you really get yourself prepared so you're ready, and then there's preparation when you shoot yourself in the foot. And I always think about that, because when I'm doing something, I'm like, am I actually preparing myself, or am I messing myself up? And I think about that with the school year too, because I told you I like to do all the things like get the notebooks and all of that stuff, because for me that's the thing. But that really isn't what prepares Jem for his school year, and I think it's not what prepares the kids. But we have to think of our anxiety too. But Vince, one of the things I like to do is talk up the next grade. And I do this with everybody's kids. So when I talk to a little kid and I say, "So what grade are you in now?" And they go, "Well, I'm in first grade, but I'll be in second grade in the fall." And I always say the same thing. "Oh, second grade was my favorite. Second grade's the best. It's so much better than first grade. You're gonna love second grade." And I'll tell you why, because in second grade, you get to do this that you couldn't do in first. And it doesn't matter what grade they say. Whatever grade they say, I say, "That's my favorite."
Right.
And I go, "Oh, it's so much better than the other one." Like I'm selling a car. You know what I mean? And because I think that talking it up is a big way to prepare them.
Right.
And for different kids, that means different things.
Yeah.
Like you were saying, visit the school and other things. But Vince, help us to know, like, what are some things that we, besides, visiting the school and talking it up, what are some other things that we can do individually for kids that might work to help them to actually be prepared? Like, are there programs that we want to put in their ABA program that will help them? So that we're not doing the prep where we're shooting ourselves in the foot.
I think the first thing is what you just touched on, keeping it positive, keeping it, you want anything to do to reduce their anxiety. So keeping it positive. This is going to be the best year. Mrs. Smith is the best teacher. You're going to have so much fun. Like, really keeping it positive, right? Not the doom and gloom. We're going back to school. Woe's me, right? We want this to be very positive. And then what we can do, like internally, like you were saying, if we wanted to program or put lessons in their program to help them prepare, right? We want to make sure that there's independent skills or adaptive living skills in the morning, getting up, getting dressed, getting breakfast, following a schedule in the morning. I think that is key, is them being able to follow, time schedules, right? We want to prepare them to get back into that routine. Some of that starts early. I encourage parents to start putting their kids to bed earlier, getting them up at the time that you typically would go to school, at least 2 weeks before school starts. Because if not, that morning, the first day of school, and they wake up at 6:30 a.m., it is going to be a nightmare. It's going to be really difficult. But if we give them time to prepare, we adjust their internal clocks, we adjust their abilities to follow schedules, and we give it 2, 3, 4 weeks of practice. Then when school starts, it's going to be much easier transition to school, and they're going to look forward to it.
So we start now, putting them to bed, telling them bedtime is 5 minutes earlier, 10 minutes earlier, or does it depend on the kid?
It depends on the kid, the age of the child, the functioning level of the child, the adaptive skills of the child. I think, each parent can appropriately, estimate what time their child should go to bed to get the plenty of hours of sleep to be able to get them up at the time they need to get up at school. Some kids get up at 6 a.m. to go to school. Some kids don't have to get up until 7 because they don't start until 8:30. Again, that's 100% up to the parent's time schedule. But we want to make sure that they're getting plenty of sleep, 8 to 10 hours a night. We want to make sure that we start gradually. I think what you were alluding to, Shannon, we want to start gradually getting them to bed earlier. You might not want to go from 10 o'clock to 8:30.
Right.
That might be too much of a gap that they're working to, but we start working backwards so that it's, instead of going to bed at 10, it's now 9:30, then next week it's 9, then the next week it's at 8:30, which is the time we want them to go to bed. But again, using your time frame on what you feel is appropriate for your child, I would definitely start getting them to bed a half an hour earlier each week leading up to the time or the week of school, the time you want them to get up. Because if it's too much of a jump or too much of a change, you're going to have a really sleepy child come the day school starts, and that's going to be difficult not only for the child but for you as the parents.
I openly admit I suck at this.
You let Jim stay up late.
Well, because I really have executive function issues with going to bed myself.
Right.
I get too tired to go to bed.
Right.
And I will stay up. And I'm somebody who suffered from insomnia for a lot of years. Now, I don't have insomnia. I could fall asleep anywhere because I'm so overtired because I don't get enough sleep. But to get myself to bed is a project and a half and is often way too late. So to get my child to go to bed earlier is really hard for me. But you're really good at this.
I'm pretty good at it, yeah. I mean, we have a visual schedule of what Wyatt does in the nighttime. We have a daytime schedule over the summer and a nighttime visual schedule. So it has eat dinner, 6:30, play Wii, 7 o'clock, paint, 8 o'clock, brush teeth and get ready for bed, 9 o'clock. So he also has a timer for certain activities. So the timer for the Wii, the timer for the painting. So that's the only way we can do it, because if I rely on winging it, forget it.
Yeah, well, I'm never saying that it's good what I do, because it ends up with me being at work tired because I didn't get enough sleep, and we have crabby mornings because nobody's had enough sleep. I'm just saying I suck at this.
Okay.
I fully recognize, it's that thing, and I think this happens to all of us, right? That's the expert says, here's what you should do, and you go, yeah, that makes total sense. I'm going to institute that tonight. But if we don't have enough executive functions to say, what do I have to do in order to institute that, and what I would have to do, I just never get around to.
Right.
Because I would have to rearrange the afternoon, and I don't do that. But maybe I'll think about it that way now, and maybe I'll report back to you guys and be better.
Okay.
But that brings up, Vince, that there's the other part of this that, it's not just going back to school, and it's not just the supplies, and not just the emotions that the kiddos are having, but all the emotions that the parents have about, it's that. Now, some people are thrilled. They're like, yay, school's back in session, and they're thrilled. And other people go, oh, it's going to be the homework. Oh, it's going to be the treadmill. Because I always feel as soon as school starts that I am on somebody else's tether, running to a place that I don't even know where I'm going, and it does not feel good for me.
Right, it feels like a treadmill, right?
It really does, especially, it does in the fall up to a certain point until you get to like Halloween, and then it backs off. But then it starts again in the spring, and it's that way all the way to the last day, and I always am like, oh, we survived it again, you know? So what about the emotions, Vince? What do you have in your bag for us for that?
And going back to both topics, right? It's looking at what are our barriers that might get in the way of having a timely night schedule or starting to prepare them for the school year, and then how do we prepare for the school year? Because, like you said, it's a lot of work, but it's also a lot of anxiety for us. How's our kids going to do with the new teacher? Is the teacher going to be understanding of our child's individual needs? Are we going to have enough supports around the child to be able to properly maintain them at school, right? I mean, lots of different things that we have to look at and have to prepare for. So we need to do the same thing. We need to start working on this, start getting answers, start getting, even maybe some interventions or systems set up so that it makes it easier for us for when school starts. So, for example, I want to meet with the teacher the first week of school, so write down the things that you want to talk to them about, maybe the go-to list. What other anxieties do I have about school? What are some of the other barriers to, like you said, I'm too tired at night to follow a schedule to put them to bed. Okay, then maybe we do something similar to what Nancy's doing. A visual schedule will help not only the child, will also help me know what time I'm supposed to do what things. I don't have to think about it anymore.
Yeah.
There's a schedule that says 7 o'clock dinner time. Okay, 7 o'clock dinner time. 8 o'clock bedtime, or radio time, or time to read, or whatever it may be. So I think looking at our own barriers, what are the things that are preventing us from preparing the child for school, and what are the things that I need to do to prepare to school so that I can start. I mean, again, we're 3, 4, 5 weeks away. We want to start now. I think most of our families and most of us as adults are professional procrastinators, right? We're great about, that's 3 weeks from now. That's
yes.
But, as we know, 3 weeks creeps up on us really quick. So if we don't start writing things down and what we need to do to prepare, then it's gonna come up on us really quick, and it's gonna overwhelm us.
I just got that little buzz of anxiety of like, oh, I'm so far behind. But my mind immediately, when I start to feel that, go, what's the paycheck in it for me? What's the paycheck in it for me if I were to get this together and get to bed a little bit earlier? That's the thing I got to remind myself. Oh, right. I would feel better.
Right.
My kid would do better in school. I always got to, because it sounds like hopping on the treadmill.
Right.
But I love the fall. I do.
Yeah.
It's just I don't know. And I don't have any reason to be anxious about school, but the beginning of the school year always feels
I think a lot of us have anxiety about it. It's just the change. And
we're conditioned, right?
Right.
It's been for every year since preschool, to be anxious about them going into school, because that was where it really started. We didn't know how it was going to go and what sports were there, were people going to be good, or the kids going to be nice. And every year there's a different level of that goes on. Even when we get to points where, like you're saying, well, maybe I don't need to be anxious anymore.
Yeah.
This has been ongoing in the last 4 years. The kids have transitioned great. There hasn't been any problem. But I think inside of us, we've been so conditioned early on with our kids and our protective instincts of our kids that it is not going to go away. I mean, I think it's always going to be there, which is a good thing. We just need to be able to be aware of it, be accepting of it, and being able to manage it.
Right.
Well, and we both have new things this year in terms of Wyatt's going to be a senior.
Wyatt's going to be a senior, and there's a lot. Now, he has to go and get his senior portrait before school starts, so that's going to be, I'll prep him for that, and that'll probably get him ready. But there's going to be a whole bunch of things this year that'll be the first of a bunch of things and the end of a bunch of things. Right.
And I would think that would be anxiety provoking for you.
It is
I'm flipping out because Jem's going to be a junior.
Right.
And somebody was saying something about 2 years, about, hey, let's do this in 2 years. And I was like, well, in 2 years, Jem's going to be getting ready to go to college.
Right.
And freaking me, I'm just like, wow, where did it all go?
Right.
It's just time has passed really quickly. But there's a lot of stuff that's new this year. Because,
yes.
Like you were saying, we have to go get pictures.
Right.
The senior pictures, and it has to be on this day. And it's both wonderful, but it's uncharted territory.
Right. Right.
But you seem to be handling it really well, Missy.
No, not really. I have a lot of anxiety about it. I'm just a good faker.
Faking it till she makes it. And he'll be wonderful. It's all good. And now, Vince, am I correct that you have all of your girls have graduated now, right?
Yes, my youngest graduated high school at the end of spring. So
wow, congratulations!
I'm officially 2 college students starting this fall.
Well, that's its own little heart attack, right?
Yeah.
It's its own heart attack. It's its own. My wife and I always joke around now. We're done raising children. Now we have to raise 2 young adults, and fortunately they're both going to the same college.
Oh, that's cool.
She's been there for 3 years, so she's already an expert. And now Haley's going to start, so they have each other to kind of depend on now.
Well,
so
that's good.
That's nice.
That works well, and you go to the same place when you want to visit.
Right.
That's fabulous. Wonderful. Well, congratulations on that. It is an accomplishment. It is such an accomplishment to have. I watched just a couple weeks ago as everybody was posting all their kids' graduation, videos and stuff, and I was like, that is an accomplishment. When your kid graduates, and when you've completed high school, that's an accomplishment,
right?
Because the hours that we have all put in,
yeah.
I think that's part of the anxiety too. Okay, so anything else, Vince, off the top of our heads that we can think of to help parents with the stress from getting this show on the road here in the next couple of weeks?
Talk about it. The big thing is talk about it. Talk about it with the supervisor. Parents should talk about it with each other. Remember, your ABA team, either be it from CARD or any agency, you guys are a unit and you guys are there to support one another. So talk about it now. If there's something that needs to be programmed in an ABA lesson, that we can or they can start working on that now.
Yeah.
But we can also start preparing the parents on how to work through some of their barriers if those come up.
Spectacular.
Okay. Very good
Vince,
suggestions.
thank you so much for being with us always. And where can people reach you if they have other questions for you, Vince?
If you have any questions, you can reach me at v.redmond, R-E-D-M-O-N-D, my last name, at centerforautism.com.
There we go.
Okay,
Vince,
thank you,
we
Vince.
just adore you, and we always
All right.
appreciate when you have a chance to share
Right.
with us your wisdom.
Right. Thanks for helping us
See you guys
make
next
this
month.
transition
All right.
easier. Okay, thank
care.
you, Vince.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, we're going to take a break, and then when we come back, we have another expert in the field of research. Karen Nohelty is going to be with us, and she's going to be talking with us. See, we talked a little bit about sleep.
Right.
She's going to be talking about some research having to do with sleep. So
Right, sleep in kids on the autism spectrum
There
and
we
some of
go.
the problems we encounter.
So stick with us. We'll be back after these messages. Hi, I'm Shannon Penrod, and we're at the ABCs and XYZs of Special Needs Conference. And this year, for the first time, they've got something really remarkable. It's the Entrepreneurial Boutique. These are all items that have been made and are being sold by individuals who have special needs. So we're going to do a little shopping and talk to some of these fabulous entrepreneurs. Come on.
My name is Molly Rarick, and I'm founder of Breed's Gift. We're a nonprofit that serves teens and adults with special needs, like Chase here. We were founded in 2013 and serve people in the Conejo Valley, Santa Barbara, and LA.
Our main objective is to give our participants the skills they need to gain a more independent life.
My name is Shelley Cox, and Lisa Zalagi and I are founders of Creative Steps and Create Micro Business Enterprises. And the items that we're selling here today are all made by the clients who have passions about what they want to make, and then they get the profits from what they make after we've paid all of the other expenses.
We are here today because my goal is to be independent, and also I would like to share all my artwork, and I would like to sell.
Thinking about at his young age being a businessman, it's amazing. I cannot be more proud.
A lot of adults don't really believe kids. They'll think, kids are kids, what are they talking about? But when a child stands up for what they believe in, it's so strong and powerful. I first got involved with autism advocacy 4 years ago when my friend was diagnosed. When I found out about my friend's diagnosis, I didn't really understand what it meant. But it didn't matter to me or change our friendship. I didn't look at her any differently. We still had so much fun together. Now I know that she experiences life a little differently than me, and that's okay. Knowing what she goes through has helped me to understand and be more caring towards other people in similar situations. I got involved with ACT Today because I wanted to do whatever I could to help. They provide options like behavioral therapy, medical care, social skills programs, assistance to military families, and much more. Being there for my friend was my #1 priority. I've been volunteering and spreading the word about the cause via my social media platform because raising awareness is a crucial first step. There needs to be more kids and teens involved to make sure that our voices are heard just as loudly as the adults. You may be small like me, but your acts of kindness are not.
And we're back, and as promised, we are back with our research expert, Karen Nohelty. Karen, thanks for joining us.
Research and Development Manager at CARD, and I have a great paper to share with you that reviewed current research on sleep problems for children with autism.
Great, because we were just talking about going back to school and getting kids to bed earlier, which can be a challenge. So tell us a little bit about this study and what it's come up with.
Sure. This study is called Recommendations for Identifying Sleep Problems and Treatment Resources for Children with Autism. And it's by Emily Abell, Soo Yun Kim, Ashley M. Kellerman, and Matthew T. Broadhead. And they really focused on the fact that, prevalence of sleep problems with children with autism is so much higher. It's 50 to 80% of kids with autism have sleep problems compared with only 25% of their typically developing peers. And it's really important to address these issues. I think it's pretty obvious, but in addition to, not sleeping, the whole family not sleeping, it can exacerbate common core ASD symptoms, as well as decrease attention and increase challenging behaviors throughout the day.
Okay.
So there are a number of specific sleep problems that different children can have. It can range from taking too long to fall asleep at night, to waking up in the middle of the night, maybe multiple times, to waking up too early in the morning. And all these things put together can lead to decreased sleep duration at night. And there are certain recommendations that are made based on children's age as to how much sleep they should be getting. And without children reaching that number, they potentially have different health problems, and it can impact them throughout their day. So the first step that the article mentioned is to rule out any medical causes. That's a really important first step. And then you really want to assess the situation. And the article recommended doing a sleep diary. And that really involves, writing down a lot of information about the child's sleep. So that includes bedtime, the time it took to fall asleep, if the child woke up in the middle of the night and how many times, as well as the time the child woke up in the morning. And all of this information is really important to gather because for parents, this is information that you can provide to a clinician to help identify some strategies. And for clinicians, this is really the first step in helping you figure out appropriate strategies to use. So in terms of the specific strategies, the article first talked about something they call sleep hygiene. And this is a term for a collection of strategies that really involves best practices to help set you up for success, so to speak, in terms of sleeping. And these sleep hygiene strategies can help people fall asleep just in and of themselves, which is really great without having to use more intrusive things. So this involves things like exactly what you're saying, a regular bedtime. And, especially over the summer, that slides a little bit. So making sure to kind of gradually get back on track with the bedtime before school starts is really important. And it is also really important to not shift that too much over the weekend. So sleeping in on the weekend doesn't help sleep. Another big, yeah, I know.
All right,
another
go ahead.
big component, sure, is a bedtime routine. So having a set list of activities that child follows every night before bed can really help get that child in the right mindset, so to speak, for bed. And these activities can include things like brushing your teeth, taking a bath, reading a bedtime story, having a special goodnight kiss, that sort of thing. That helps set the child in the right mindset and build that routine for sleep. And it's really important when you're looking at those activities before bed to focus on things that are relaxing and avoid things that are really stimulating. So that's going to vary for each individual, but things that are relaxing can be things like reading a book, listening to quiet music, and, avoiding stimulating things can include things like, heavy physical activity. You don't want to be running around the house playing hide and seek right before bed. And the other big category is technology, which is really hard for a lot of families, but avoiding, iPads and really all screens before bed is a really important thing to set you up for success.
Okay, now you're really messing with everything. We can't sleep in on the weekend, and we can't play our Sudoku on, because usually that's the thing that gets me to go to sleep, Karen. But I can see why I'm not good at we were just talking with Vince about how I'm not good at the bedtime routine. And the problem sort of, we're talking about our kids on the spectrum, but it kind of starts with us, right? Right. Okay, keep telling me, and my hole's getting deeper and deeper here.
And, I had some trouble with sleep, and when I started researching this some years ago, I started using these strategies myself, and it really works, unfortunately.
I'm sure it does.
So something else that helps is really having a regular exercise routine during the day. So the more active we are during the day, the easier it is for us to sleep at night. And this can be as simple as, go into the park for a certain amount during the day.
Okay.
I'm making faces over here because
Yeah,
I was
Shannon's
like, well, there we have it.
another one.
There's another one Shannon's not good at. What else am I doing wrong, Karen? But this is what I need to know. Yeah. Okay. What else?
So other things, and this is another really hard one, but good eating habits help with sleep, and more specifically, limiting caffeine, sugary foods, and big meals right before bed.
Okay.
And then the last kind of category involves the bedroom itself. So minimizing light in the bedroom, keeping it quiet, and keeping it at a nice, comfortable, slightly cool temperature. All of those things can really help our kids fall asleep better.
Okay.
Okay. And these are all things that you can incorporate in your child's ABA program. Is that correct?
Correct. And if these strategies don't work to reduce the child's sleep problems, there are some other strategies that you can use as well. Parent education is a really important tool where professionals can really provide some more individualized support. And there was one specific strategy I wanted to share in the article called fated bedtime. So this is specifically for kids who have trouble falling asleep. And this involves moving their bedtime to a later time at a time when kids are likely to fall asleep within that kind of 15-minute time frame that we find is appropriate for kids and for all of us. And so that might look like if a child typically falls asleep at 8 p.m. or their bedtime, is 8 p.m., but they don't fall asleep until 10 p.m., make their bedtime 10 p.m. If they're falling asleep pretty quickly as soon as they get in bed, then in future days, you're going to gradually fade the bedtime to maybe 9:45 and then 9:30 and then 9:15 until they're actually falling asleep at a normal time.
Okay, great.
That sounds like really doable.
Yeah.
It does. It all sounds doable. It's just that you have to make your mind that this is a priority.
Right.
And clearly sleep should be a priority. Okay, anything else, Karen?
No, that was really the main points from the article. I know it's a lot of kind of straightforward stuff that's hard to implement.
But it's important stuff.
Yes, it is. Because our kids are not going to be able to function well at school if they don't have a good night's sleep.
No, and we're doing all these other things to make sure that they can do their best. But sleep is like the baseline of what we need to do.
Right.
All right, I'm a convert. All right, and where can we find out more information about this, Karen, if we want to go into this more depth?
Sure. Well, there is the National Sleep Foundation. They make recommendations in terms of the number of hours of sleep children should get. So that would be one resource to look at.
Okay, wonderful. And Karen, thank you so much for the work that you do here at CARD and for joining us on a regular basis and having somebody from your team join us to share these wonderful research tidbits. We're really enjoying it. I am, aren't you?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's very helpful. So thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you, Karen.
Great. Thanks so much for having me.
All right,
bye-bye.
take
care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
We're going to take a break, and then we're going to come back and cover some in the news
stories. Right.
So stick with us. We'll be back after these messages.
You say howdy, we say hi. Let's get rowdy, let's get wild. Let's get wild. Let's get wild. Let's get wild. Let's get wild.
Hi, welcome back to Autism Live. I'm Lisa Ackerman. We're here doing allergy-free cooking, and I brought my sister with me today.
Jamie Davis, thanks for having me.
A lot of people are asking about a allergy-free breakfast, and breakfast can be full of crap.
But it's full of crap and it's hard to do. We don't have time in the morning. We're in a hurry.
We're going completely nut-free. The recipe is not...
Personality, we can't do anything about.
Yeah, can't do anything about that. So we're going to start off first with... I'm using sorghum and brown rice flour. I find the texture good, and I've added some flaxseed meal. We talked about that last time, flaxseed meal for poop. Almost every one of our kids has a poop issue. What's next on the recipe is the quinoa flakes, baking powder, cinnamon, and the xanthan gum. It brings the glutinous texture back into the flour, and often what happens with these recipes is they can fall apart. This one holds up nicely. I like it. For the folks that are egg-free, we have a ton of egg replacers. One of those can be the arrowroot starch or bringing back some additional flaxseed. So there's a lot of options to go eggless, but we're going to go egg full in this one. For sweetener, I use the maple syrup. I stay away from refined sugar. What I'm adding now is the coconut milk, maple syrup, and a little bit of the coconut oil. And we're going to add in the raisins, craisins, and chocolate chips at the end. I find that chocolate chips can coax people to eat some really amazing things. When we started, Jeff had 42 food allergies, so we had to get creative in how we cooked. So nuts were a big, big issue. What I like now is that he can tolerate so many more things after start doing this diet. So let me show you how you can deal with this sticky stuff here. You get your fingers really wet, and you can push it down. So my oven has been preheated. It's at 350 degrees. So we're gonna just throw this in. Like I said, I like it around 23 minutes, and the magic oven says, I'm done. Looks like, don't you love magic ovens? They're awesome. There we go, pops right out. The texture of these, and it's so pretty. It looks almost like a big chocolate chip cookie, but you actually made it healthy. But you can be my guinea pig. Tell me what you think.
That looks really good.
Doesn't it? So the textures and the colors in there are just beautiful. So the raisins are for you, the chocolate chips are for your kid.
I can't believe it's gluten-free.
I know, right? It doesn't taste like, you know, crap. We're wrapping up another cooking show. If you have feedback, you can email us at autismlive@gmail.com. We're, of course, on Facebook. You could go to facebook.com/autismlive. And of course, Talkin' Now has thousands of recipes. Join me there, and we can cook some more later on. So thanks for joining us.
You say howdy, we say hi. Let's get rowdy, let's get wild. Let's get wild.
And we're back.
I'm sorry, and I knew you were starting, I apologize, but I was just going to say, I haven't made that recipe that they were just making.
Right.
Didn't it look good, though?
It looked really good.
I really have to make that one.
Okay.
Anyway,
So we're back with some news stories. One story that's coming out of Florida, researchers at the University of Central Florida said in a new report that acids found in processed foods may be to blame for autism.
Yeah, the headline read, child autism, acid in foods could be harmful to pregnant women. And I was saying that to Nancy, I felt like that was a little misleading, that you really have to read it to hear that what they're talking about is something called propionic acid, which can be used as a preservative.
Right.
So it's those kinds of foods that, we all know are not considered healthy, but sometimes when they word it and tell you exactly what it's doing and you go, we were talking on Wednesday about pesticides. And when I found out what pesticides actually do, I was like, I don't want that on my food or my child's food. So listen to this. The researchers looked at propionic acid, which can be used as a preservative. The exposed stem cells in a lab, they exposed stem cells in a lab to the acid and found that the preservative hurts how those stem cells develop into healthy brain cells. It also increases the kind of cells that hurt the development of the brain.
Right.
I don't know about you, but that makes me go, well, I don't think I'd want that if I was pregnant.
And the next step on this study is to test preservative acid on mice to see if it leads to autism in actual brains.
Well, but knowing that they can put it on a stem cell and the stem cell is like hurt by it and the development is hurt, it's great. I know they got to do the mouse model, but I feel like, that's something to stay away. All the more reason to be healthy while you're pregnant and eat as healthy as you possibly can. We've had Dr. Berger before on the show, and he has developed a process, because for years moms would come to him and say, I already have one kid on the spectrum, I know my chances are higher of having another, what can I do? He tested their blood and a lot of times put them on organic diets and brought up their levels of anything that they were low on, that they needed vitamins and so on and so forth. And thus far, 0 of those women have had a second child on the spectrum.
Right.
0.
Right, which is pretty astounding.
And guess what? None of them have had a child with childhood cancer. None of them have had pediatric diabetes.
Right.
I mean, it's worthwhile to
It
eat
is
well when you're
worthwhile,
pregnant.
right.
Worthwhile to eat well when you're pregnant. Okay, so this I'm sort of sad. For those of you, we've covered them before on the show, that the IAN project, which is the Interactive Autism Network, this was something that was started 13 years ago, which when I read that, because I remember we were in the throes of things back in that day, and the IAN project did surveys, and they would ask us questions on a regular basis, and we would participate, and they would come out with information based on what the parents were saying. It was really cutting edge, and they're phasing IAN out. They're phasing it out in favor of something that they think is better.
Right,
and of course,
called Spark.
Yes, and we've talked about Spark a little bit on the show. We had some questions, people writing in about it. It's a new registry from the Simons Foundation. So the Spark stands for Simons Foundation Powering Autism Research for Knowledge. That's what Spark stands for. It started in 2016. And they're really pushing very hard to collect genetic data from 50,000 families.
Right, and they think there's considerable overlap between the two registries. So hopefully the Spark will continue in this kind.
And I love Spark. I just hope that they don't lose the aspect of IAN where they asked parents' opinions about things. That one of the things that we participated in the first IAN research batch. And I remember the first day that they came out and said, here's what our first research found. And they found that kids that were on the autism spectrum tend to be taller than their neurotypical peers. They found that they tend to have more weight issues, which I don't think we would have found out other than asking the parents, do you consider your child to be overweight? Has a doctor said your child is overweight? They also found that the number one stressor for parents was not all the things that you would think it was. It wasn't even the financial part of it. It was having to fight for services, fight with the school district, fight with the ABA provider, fight with, now your insurance company. That was the single biggest stressor. Not that your child engages in challenging behavior. No. It was having to fight to get what was right for your child. And I think that's because we're also afraid that, what if I don't know about this and my child doesn't get it? What if this, whether if it's because of me, that I didn't know, I didn't work hard enough, I didn't get the research, I couldn't afford it, whatever. Right. I hear families all the time, it breaks my heart, that have teenagers that will say to me, well, we missed the boat. We didn't have access to ABA when our child was the age that your child was. We didn't know, and there's some guilt there. And I always want to hug those parents and say, you did your level best with what you had. But that's a hard pill, right?
It is a hard pill.
I mean I know that it took me 6 months from when I should have gotten GEM diagnosed to when I did. Because I went to a pediatrician who said, no, he's fine. And I knew he wasn't. And I beat myself up about that 6 months.
I beat myself up because it took a couple of years.
This is the thing. And and yet we both got there. Can you imagine if you were just now finding out about ABA? Because some of the moms that I talked to are just despondent. They're like, well, that wasn't open to me.
Well,
I missed the boat.
It took me till Wyatt was 4 to get, almost 5. To get ABA, and I feel a lot of times I missed the boat. And
don't you wonder, what would have happened? Because I do. I always think about if I had caught it the 6 months when I first thought it, could we have done something better? Don't you think about it?
I think about it all the time.
It's a terrible space to be in.
If he had gotten ABA at 2, where would he be now? Instead of almost 5.
Yeah.
And I did the best I could. With the information I had.
Of course you did. You did awesome. And everybody is doing the level best they can. And I think the takeaway is do what you can now and try to cut yourself some slack for what you didn't know, because you're not omniscient and omnipotent. But for those of us that have kids that are older, we have to cut ourselves some slack. But for those of you who have kids that are younger, do everything you can right now so that you don't have to carry that backpack of guilt around with you, and know that you did your level best for your kid, and we hope to give you more information now than you had before. Okay, so then our last study talks about the term high functioning. Is this a term that you use on a regular basis?
Yes,
saying that somebody's high
I do.
functioning? And I think I do too. I've been trying to be a little bit cognizant of it in the last year, because I've had folks on the spectrum say to me, we don't like that. We don't like that term.
And why do they say they don't like it?
Well, honestly, because they feel that it's a little bit what this study is showing is that it's a bit of a misnomer. That for the friends that I have that would have been deemed Asperger's on the old scale, they feel like sometimes they don't get access to services or access to compassion for something that's difficult for them, because the rest of us look at them and we see, oh well, they can hold a job, so they must be fine. They're dealing with issues like mine. So they must be fine, and they're like, no, I need help. I can do this, but I can't do that.
Right. This study shows that a lot of individuals that have so-called high functioning have a lot of issues that they need services for and help for.
With real life skills that are, stuff that we consider adaptive skills that, I guess if you're rich, you don't need somebody to do, but not all of us are rich, So if a person could be wildly successful, except that they need somebody to handle their bank account, right? And they need that support to do that, but they don't qualify for services because they go, well, you're working a job, so just figure the bank out. And that's a really antiquated and ableist way of thinking. So anyway, there's a research study showing that this is really an issue for folks that are on the spectrum, that once they are labeled high functioning, that there is sort of this reticence to give services to people, when in fact that they may very well qualify for those services. And that maybe we should stop using this term. And look at it. It's very hard though, because you're someplace in the autism community and you're talking to somebody, and even if it's you're having a conversation about, oh well, do you want to go to camp, and since it's such a spectrum, we need words to say what does your child need, and we get a little lazy and we go, so are they high functioning?
Right.
And it's a ridiculous question, because I don't know what anybody means when they're saying it. When I say high functioning might be vastly different than when you say high functioning. I've talked to people who have teens that are nonverbal, have no functional communication, so they're not able to talk to you on an iPad, and like severe behaviors, refer to them as being high functioning. And I'm always like, gosh, that's not the term I would use. For if you don't have functional communication, that is high functioning would not be the term. And when I'm saying functional communication, I mean having some way of communicating your needs, whether it's through an iPad. That doesn't necessarily have to be vocal speech, but having some way of conveying, saying, I need help with this, or, please leave me alone, or whatever, to say what your needs are. And but different people view that as being, even if you don't have that's high functioning. So, it's a loosey-goosey term at best. And if it's preventing people from getting services, then maybe it is time to say, with that term.
Let's do away with it.
But then how do we describe when someone has... And I think we go back to individual specific, saying this person requires this support. And maybe when we're trying to determine that, saying to somebody, what kind of support does this individual need? Maybe that's the way that we get to this. Anyway. All right. Well, we're going to take a short break, and then we're going to come back to close out the show. And so stick with us.
Okay. What is autism? What is autism?
What is autism?
What is autism?
What is autism?
What is autism?
I've been asking myself that for a very, very long time.
Let me think about that one.
Trying to just
Jeez. Let me think. Oh man, that's a rough one. Yes.
Autism is a neurological disorder that affects many of our kids in different ways.
It's a learning disability that affects the cognitive functions of the brain.
A lot of people have the misconception that it's a disability, and it's really not.
I look at it as like a special gift.
When one person thinks differently from another.
It's an opportunity for everyone to learn to understand someone that's a little different than them. Autism is the ability to educate.
They're given so much talent in different areas.
To me, autism means a chance to be with and be around people you really care about. Autism is beautiful.
It's a way of seeing the world differently.
It's always unique, totally intelligent, and sometimes mysterious.
Happiness that comes out of my son's hard work.
It's a movement.
Unpredictable.
Abstract.
Awesome. Love. The field I want to work in.
Laughter, fun, joy. Autism is beautiful to me.
I want you to remember these 3 words. There is hope.
Parent to parent, you might be asking yourself sometimes, why does my child have meltdowns? Well, the difference between tantrums and meltdowns, they're a part of typical development, but meltdowns are when things get a little bit more out of control, when even the child isn't sure what's entirely wrong. Generally with a meltdown, there's an environmental component. There's something else going on outside the child that's making the tantrum worse. It's really important that we start to be detectives and take notes and look around at the environment and start to figure out what are the things that happen every time your child has a meltdown. And lastly, it's important to get help. You really can't face these kinds of things effectively, completely on your own. Tantrums, they're a part of typical development, but don't accept meltdowns as something that just happens. Make sure you get help and support. You might be asking yourself if your child has autism.
And we're back. And
we're in the weird position that we never have extra time, but we have a couple of extra minutes, so we thought maybe we would talk a little bit about some of the things that we're doing over the summer.
Right.
It's hard for me to accept that the summer is more than half over, and
I can't. It always goes by too fast.
And I don't feel like this summer that we've really gotten, I mean, I guess we have, that we've gotten to do summer kinds of things.
I don't feel like we have either. Wyatt's been in summer school since basically he got out of school.
Yeah.
And he's enjoyed it this year. So that's.
Is that about to end though?
It's ending today. Today is the last day.
Yay, congratulations for him.
Right.
That's wonderful. And then does he get a little bit of a break?
He gets a little bit, like 2 days break, and then he goes to camp. So he's going off to camp, and this weekend he's going on a 2-night overnight at Golden Heart Ranch. So
congratulations.
Yeah, so he'll be gone for 2 nights and be
That's
sleeping
amazing.
in a cabin. And he's done it before for 1 night, but
Right.
this is the first time he's had 2 nights away from home.
What an awesome thing. And
Yeah.
congratulations to you, because I know that that's not the easiest thing to sign up for and make happen
it's
and go,
not.
I'm doing it.
Right.
But you're doing it, and I'm proud of you.
Right.
That's amazing.
I would love for him to go to a longer sleepaway camp.
Well,
but
this is the precursor.
This is the first step in doing
And we have
that.
friends that have their kids go away to longer.
Yeah, I know
sleepover
Priscilla
camps.
Picard has her son.
Yes, and she's talked with us before about
Right.
that, about how that's just a fabulous thing for her son, and it's a fabulous thing for her.
Right.
And that what a gratifying thing. I remember one of the first times that you and I did a show together, and we were talking about summer camps, and you were saying, I wish that there were more sleepaway camps, and I was like, you do? And I was like, oh, I always thought of those as being torture. Like you get rid of your kids to send them away, and I was like, sleepaway camp? I thought of them as like boot camp. And you were like, what's wrong with you? Sleepaway camp is fun. And
I loved sleepaway camp.
And
when I
you
was
told me
growing up.
about how when you were a kid, that was like the
Girl
most
Scout
fun
camp.
thing.
Absolutely.
And I didn't have that experience
You
as a
didn't?
kid.
You never went
No.
away to camp?
No. But I read a book that was like my favorite book that I would read every summer when I was a kid, about the girl who her mom had some illness. She was very, very ill. So the dad packed her and her little sister away to summer camp, and she was with mean kids, and they tortured her, and she somehow got through it, right? That was my favorite book. So I thought, sleepaway as an adult, and I was saying to you, sleepaway camp, and you were like, what are you talking about? It's the most wonderful thing.
Right.
So I'm thrilled that Wyatt now gets to experience this thing that you
and Golden
love.
Heart Ranch is such a great organization.
Yes, they're wonderful.
For those of you that don't know it, it's based here in
Yes.
Los Angeles, and they have day programs and camp.
And we've had Rose on the show
We've
before.
had Rose from Golden Heart Ranch on the show.
Wonderful, wonderful place. So that's fabulous. fabulous.
So what has Jem been doing?
So, you know, we always start our summer the week that he is done with school, that's his birthday, and then right after that, one of my nieces comes to visit and brings her, she has 2 kids now, and we usually do like the insane theme park week from you know where.
Right.
So that we're every other day.
That would be my worst nightmare.
Well, and you know, and our good friend Joanne Laura, who, when I was telling her what the schedule was, looked at me and said, "Shannon, I'd rather eat poison."
Right.
Right? Now, I love it. I love going, but it gets a little bit too much, especially.
I'm not a theme park person.
Most of the time we had really, really good weather, but one of the days it was really hot and I really was suffering. And of course, then I come to find out, like I was suffering the day after, and come to find out that's when we discovered that my blood sugar was really high and started me down on that path.
Right.
So that's been a lot of my summer. But I'm doing better, and thank you everybody for writing in at well wishes, because I am my blood sugar and my blood pressure are doing better, and that's good. But so we started out, did a bunch of theme parks, but then Jem did camp, that he went to Second City and did an improv camp.
Oh, how fun.
Which was really fun, and there was a performance at the end, and that was super cool. And now Jem is working. He's working, and every morning we have to get up and take him to work. And
where is he working?
He is one of the camp counselors at Camp Ed.
Okay, and how's that going?
Well, he's enjoying it. He just thinks it's the greatest thing ever. And I was saying to him, you know, well, how we've seen so much of the stuff that they do there, and I think it's lovely. But you know, I'm not there on a day-to-day basis. And last year we dropped in at the end of a camp day to just hang out and be there. And I was saying to Jem, when he was little, there were camps that we sent him to that were just week-long camps, and I think they were half-day camps.
Right.
They'd go in the morning and be done by the time it was noon. And like one was a Harry Potter camp, and one was a mad scientist camp, and then he learned coding. We always had him in some camp situation, and a lot of times one of us went with him because we couldn't afford to send an aide, and they wouldn't take him otherwise. So we would go to camp with him, and Jim and I were talking about, my husband and I were talking about that last night, going, do you remember when we had to go with him to camp? And now he's a camp counselor. But I was saying to him, I said, do you remember those camps? And he said, yeah, of course I remember those camps. And I said, is Camp Ed more fun than those camps? And he said, oh, definitely. Camp Ed is much more fun. So today, well, actually, no, 2 days ago, they toured the Grammy Museum.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah.
Doing lots of fun
things. So they do
things.
all these field trips and things, and have these guest teachers come in, and they do yoga, and they do dance, and they're drawing comic books, and you know, all these fun things that he's helping to facilitate, and he's just loving it.
That's so great, Shannon.
I hope he's being helpful.
Right, I'm sure he is.
I presume that he is, but I have to check in with Nava and see, but he's loving it. And I never thought that that would be the case. So that makes me really happy. And, you know, other than that, but we need to do some outdoor fun stuff. We haven't, like, have you been outdoors much this summer?
Haven't done the pool and all of that.
Yeah. Like,
really haven't been outdoors.
Well, we moved, and so we don't have a pool anymore. And that's,
our pool is too cold to swim in.
Well, it hasn't been that hot here until recently, but it should be warm enough now.
It's starting to warm up.
Yeah,
so
it's been hotter than the surface of the sun this week.
That makes me feel like summer when I go out by the pool.
Me too. Well, invite us over. We'll come and swim.
Okay, great.
I would love, because I am missing having. We had an association that there was a pool. I don't like to have to take care of a pool myself, but there was we could walk across the street.
Right, I remember
in
that.
our bare feet, and we were that close, and I loved that pool.
Right.
I loved it, and we don't have a pool anymore. So
right.
I'm a pool orphan.
Okay.
And that was our thing every night. That we would eat dinner, you know, do whatever, wait a half an hour,
That makes you feel like it's summer for sure.
And I would love it. It was great exercise for Jem, and it was great time. My husband and I would do whatever. I would do a little bit of workout, a very little workout in the pool, but then we would hang out, and it was a great time to talk.
Right.
So I don't know. We messed up and rented a house without a pool. What were we thinking? Anyway, all right. Well, I think we've eaten up all of our time now, but it's always a pleasure to be here with you.
It's always a pleasure to be here with you.
And just a couple of chicks talking about autism.
Right.
That's us. It's you know what time it is. It's time for us to start figuring out who we're going to be for Halloween.
Already?
Yeah, already.
Right.
I mean,
Well, we have to get the costumes
it's time.
together.
We have to, and you guys know we try to bring it on Halloween.
Yeah. Maybe you guys can give us some suggestions on what you'd like to see us.
Who would you like? Last year we were Laurel and Hardy.
Right, which we had fun doing.
And I thought we were a little scarily too good.
Yeah.
I mean, like, honestly, it's not like, every woman past a certain age wakes up and go, I know who I want to look like.
Right.
But I thought you looked very much like Stan
Laurel.
And I looked way too much like Oliver Hardy. I think we actually
I think we can look like men that easily.
We won some contest about it here, but yes, no. Well, my husband and I were actually married by one of the guys. The person who was our Justice of the Peace person was one of the actors who plays Oliver Hardy at Universal Studios.
Oh, okay.
But he wasn't in his Oliver Hardy costume.
Right.
He was a larger man who was bald.
Right.
And he has the little mustache, so he looked like Fat Hitler.
Yeah.
And he was dressed all in black, and we had a black background with red roses. And so in all the wedding pictures, it looks like the head of Fat Hitler is marrying us because the rest of him is sort of blacked out. All right, now I really have digressed and taken this too long. Shannon's just rambling now. This is what it's like, you guys. Anyway, adore you. So glad to be here with you.
And we'll be back next week.
On Monday, great show. We are having some of the folks to talk about self-determination, the program here in California on the show on Monday, so you're going to want to tune in for that.
Yeah, I want to learn about that.
Great, exciting stuff. So make sure you're here then. Until then, give your kiddos a hug from me.
And yourselves a hug from me. Bye-bye for now.
Bye-bye.